And if you all stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you all for joining us today, and just want to welcome everybody back. We have the final scoping discussions today.
Peter, would you like to do roll call?
Oh, yes.
Emma?
Here.
Benelli?
Present.
Jeannie?
Here.
Tortel?
Here.
Vero?
Here.
And Tui?
Here.
All present.
Okay, great. So upon looking at this, we have all the public comments, both written and oral. It was a good mix of comments. We had individuals, individual residents, also environmental groups, legal firms, and they've all their concerns have been addressed. And with that, I think we'll go right into it. And Mary Beth, if you could give us an introduction to the scoping, final scoping, and the highlights.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Folks will remember that we're conducting a seeker review for the longevity improvements and expansion of the Harriman wastewater treatment plant. The elements of the project include making improvements to extend the useful life of the existing facilities, adding 3 MGD of treatment capacity, and a variance application from affluent limitations for TDS and chloride for discharge to the Ramapo River. So that's the project that is subject to seeker review. We began by declaring ourselves lead agency, intent to act as lead agency. Other agencies did respond. The county decided that it was the lead agency based on no responses from others. We issued a positive declaration and prepared a draft scoping document, which was initially very generic in order to receive public comment and agency comment so that we could focus the review. You have a memo from us that reviews in great detail the comments that were received. We did respond to each comment that was received, and there were some general themes that arose in the comments. I'll go over those very briefly, and then I'll explain how we included them in the scoping document. So in general, major topic areas, folks wanted to know and understand the source of chloride and TDS in the watershed and in the effluent from influent and effluent from the treatment plant. There was a lot of discussion about the Ramapo River, its current condition, contributions of the wastewater treatment plant to it from both a water quality and quantity standpoint. There was a lot of discussion about how an application for variance to species parameters would function and what the impacts would be. There were comments regarding interbasin transfer. Folks may be aware there's already existing interbasin transfer that happens here in the region, in particular from the Moodna watershed to the Ramapo River watershed. There was discussion about that. There were discussions about treatment capacity and how it would be accessed and paid for by users. There was also related questions regarding the distribution of the costs of the project. And there were also some local concerns that were raised. So the scoping document that you have in front of you, and then as you can see, you can review this document. The memo is 92 pages long and includes a copy or transcript of every comment, as well as a tabular response to each major comment in each comment that we received. So each major item in each comment that we received, we provided a response to. The scoping document that you have provides a generic description of how the seeker process unfolds. And it also describes what the content of the EIS will be based on statutory requirements and the comments that we received. So it describes the purpose and need and benefits of the project, the location of the project. It also then goes on to describe the environmental setting, potential impacts and mitigations for major areas of impact: topography, geology and soils, groundwater resources, surface water resources, governance issues, neighborhood and community impacts, climate change, unavoidable impacts, and then it provides a number of alternatives to the proposed project. I'll go over those really quickly. You're required by statute to look at a no action alternative. That would literally be do nothing. That alternative, no doubt, is going to result in saying that we don't have a position where we can do nothing. We have to comply with the speedy permit, and we have to do something regarding demand. We have an alternative to just conduct the longevity improvements. We have an alternative that it would evaluate different technologies to achieve 9 MGD of treatment capacity. We have an alternative that would not include the variance, but would include installing reverse osmosis technology to meet the speedies permit. We have an alternative that would evaluate expansion of the plant greater than 9 MGD. And we have a regional alternative that will evaluate an option to discharge affluent to the Hudson River instead of the Ramapo. There's also a brief list of potential technical appendices. Those will probably be expanded, but at a minimum, it would include the speedies permit, its fact sheet, the facility plan that's already been prepared together with additional documentation, justification for the variance application, technical documents regarding reverse osmosis and compliance for TDS and chloride, and flow projections for the system. And that
Great.
pretty much covers the document.
Great, Mary Beth. Now, with the scoping document, I guess we would, this is going forward for an environmental impact study where that will go in more in detail. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Correct. Our process here is we evaluated the project back when we issued the positive declaration, and we stated that there were potential environmental impacts that could be important that needed to be further addressed. What the scoping document does is it outlines those areas where those potential environmental impacts may require mitigation measures to reduce or eliminate those environmental impacts. You can think of the scoping document as an annotated table of contents for a draft environmental impact statement. Today, before the committee is considering adopting this document and referring it to physical services, who will again review it and consider sending it on to the full legislature to become adopted as the scoping document for this environmental review. After that occurs, we will prepare a draft environmental impact statement that will follow the information that's requested in this scoping document. So this is the table of contents for the draft environmental impact statement. We would anticipate the draft environmental impact statement will probably be issued in multiple documents because it will be fairly extensive. I think probably if you were to stack it on a desk, it's probably going to be 6 to 8 inches tall. It will be very detailed and have a tremendous amount of information. Once the draft environmental impact statement is prepared, it will come back before the legislative committees to review for its completeness. You'll be going back to the scoping document and saying, basically, does the draft environmental impact statement include the information that was outlined in the scoping document? If the answer to that is yes, the legislature eventually would adopt that draft environmental impact statement, DEIS, for a public review. That public review typically extends for somewhere around 60 days. It would include opportunity for the public to see the documents and submit written comments. And it would also, in this case, include probably a public hearing. It's not a mandate, but it's definitely recommended so that the public could engage in comments in that type of setting. That would be conducted by the legislature. And comments get received. There's a closing date for comments. All of the comments would be compiled in a very similar manner to that which we did for the scoping and cataloged. And then we would go through and systematically address each of the comments. The address of the comments together with the draft environmental impact statement becomes the final environmental impact statement, FEIS. After FEIS is submitted to the legislature and adopted, there's a brief time frame where something called a finding statement is prepared. And the finding statement is what concludes the review process. The finding statement will describe the environmental review from start to finish, will outline the key areas where mitigation measures, where impacts were identified, and mitigation measures were identified, and it'll establish the requirements or the framework for moving forward to actually execute the project.
Okay. And now, as far as the state pollutant discharge elimination system, Speedies, I noticed that, as you mentioned earlier, there were quite a few comments on that. And I also noticed that I think it was the DEC was noting that an application hadn't been received yet. Can you tell us where we are with the application for the variance, where we stand with that, and does that have any impact on us doing the draft environmental impact and leading to the final? Do we need that variance before we can continue to move, or do we need that variance before we can go?
So the variance that was referenced in DEC's comment letter is the variance to the current permit. So the permit that we have in place right now states that we can discharge up to 6 million gallons of water on average daily, and that we have a timetable of compliance in that permit that states that there are certain triggers. We have to have engineering reports done, and we need to do things to try to attempt to comply with that TDS and chloride limit. In addition, the current Speedies permit has interim limits, which the plant is meeting right now. So the variance that was referenced by New York State DEC is actually a variance application for the existing permit. The seeker process is actually for a new project, which would be a 9 MGD facility. So the project is for a variance from a 9 MGD facility. So if at the conclusion of the seeker process, the county determines that it's going to go forward with this project, one step in advancing the project would be submitting a new Speedies application for a larger permit, for a larger discharge with new technologies, with, again, a variance. This time it would be for 9 MGD, not 6 MGD. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thanks for clarifying that for me. I'd like to open it up to other committee members here. If anyone has a question or any comments, you can just raise your hand. And I see Legislator Cheney has a question. Go ahead, Barry.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple of things that I just wanted to delve into a little bit, but before I get to that, I think it's a typo on page 4 of 9. In the paragraph that begins trains 1 and 2, there's a 2.0 MD. I think it should be MGD. You see that, Mary Beth?
I am getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, second sentence in that paragraph.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Then just go down 2 paragraphs. Starts out in addition. Project may include upgrades to the main building, air supply, odor control, all those things. I'm wondering about the use of the word may include, or the phrase may include. I thought these were things that we had decided were going to be necessary, or am I just thinking of other things?
So this particular list of elements that may be included, they actually came from the county's capital and maintenance sort of ongoing list of works that are done at the treatment plant.
So they'd be separate from the longevity improvements?
Right. So these are things that were already programmed, that were being done. And the reason we put the may is because when we, as time goes by, this may be done in advance of this construction project. So they may come off, they may be a part of this construction project. We may actually, because of some of the improvements that are made, they may not be necessary anymore. So that's why we included them, so that from a seeker perspective, we're conducting the review, but we wanted to give ourselves the flexibility that if, say this project doesn't go to construction for 3 or 4 years and, the main building air supply gets improved in a year, it may be part of the project. It may also be done in advance. This is from your capital list. That's the reason we use the permit.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that. Moving on to page 5. Under groundwater resources, existing conditions, to what degree is the data that we have now thought to be sufficient to make our case before DEC successfully?
That's a really good question. So the data that we have is extensive, and it comes from many, many different sources. There are studies that go back into the early 1980s, if not the late 1970s, of the background TDS and chloride in the Round Cove River Basin and in other locations here in the lower Hudson Valley. So we have more data for this than for many, many other kinds of environmental reviews. In addition to the data that's been collected on a very robust basis by the county itself in the last, let's say, 10 years, there's a record that goes back some 40 years of data from USGS, from other independent consultants, from other work being done in the region. So there's a substantial body of data and that's one of the reasons why the EIS will be a large document, because it's going to incorporate, many, many records of data that demonstrate the issues of TDS and chloride being A, part of the geology of this region, and B, exacerbated by use of groundwater as a drinking water source, where it's hard. Folks who have water supplies locally know it's very hard water. And in addition to that, discussing where chloride, which is a man-made impact, is coming from the urbanization of the area.
Okay, so I take it you're comfortable that we're not going to need to go out and find more data and to satisfy DEC in this?
So I think there's going to be 2 parts of this. I think in terms of the environmental impact statement, we have tremendous amount of verified data to use. I do think that DEC may be seeking, as part of our regulatory work, additional data to help further characterize the where TDS is coming from. Not so much where, but what can we do about it? Is there something that can, from a practical perspective, be done to reduce the amount of total dissolved solids in the watershed? So there may be additional data that's done in the context of permit compliance, but we don't anticipate doing additional data analysis, data gathering as part of the environmental impact statement.
Okay. Do you intend to take a look at, with the development that's ongoing in the area, the significant increase in impervious, in particular paved surfaces, and the need for surface treatments during inclement winter weather, continuing or exacerbating the impact on the groundwater?
Yeah, so we have extensive coverages. We used GIS, geographic information systems, and we have impervious cover data that covers pretty extensive years worth of timeframes. So one of the things that we will be doing is evaluating the urbanization of the watershed in terms of impervious surface over time. And that urbanization is continuing, and those impacts are also continuing. So yes, that'll be part of this analysis.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Are there any other questions from any other legislators? Any other committee members? All right. So basically, Mary Beth, the next step would be to move forward with the to go to physical services, but then to get the work started on the draft EIS.
Correct.
And what kind of time frame do you think you're looking at for that?
So our time frame at the moment is, and just so everyone's aware, because of our ongoing work with the county, we've already begun the data collection for existing conditions because we need to do that work for this as well as for our regulatory compliance. So we're in many respects already working on this. We anticipate preparing the draft environmental impact statement over the course of the upcoming months. We have a goal of having that draft environmental impact statement ready for review here internally in the county. I believe it's in May, so that the DEIS could be noticed for public comment over the summer. We would be doing FEIS in the late summer, early fall. And we would like to think that, given our schedule, that we would have the finding statement being adopted in September of this upcoming year.
Okay, great. It gives us all something to look forward to. And I just want to throw that out there again if there's any other questions. Not seeing any. I'm just wondering, is Sharon there, our counsel?
No, I'm helping for Sharon. I told her to skip this because she's doing a motion on a case.
Okay, Langdon, do we need to do a vote on this to move it to physical or to move?
Yeah, I think the purpose is today, if your committee wants to, you could adopt the final scope in committee and then it'll be sent over to physical.
Okay, someone want to make that motion?
Chairman, you have somebody raising their hand as well.
Oh, I do. Katie, Majority Leader Benelli. Sorry about that. I didn't see you.
Thank you, Peter. I believe the notice for this meeting was sent to all local municipalities. Is that correct? Can somebody confirm that for me?
It was, yes.
Yes, it
Okay.
was.
And was the entire final scoping document sent to them as well?
That's available online.
Okay, and they were aware of that?
That I do not know. I could
Okay.
definitely forward all that information to them.
And my question is, I understand that Mr. Begaden is on this call. Are there any other local municipalities partaking in this call? Are they joining in?
No, they're not.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. And actually, Peter, if you want a motion, I'll make that as well.
Okay, we have a second.
Unless there's further comment.
Tortel will
before
second that motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second to vote on the final scoping. And all in favor, please say aye. Oh, hold on, I've got
Aye.
one more question. I've got Legislator Amo. Yes, sir.
I'll just question it since Majority Leader Benelli brought it up, and we only have Mr. Sagan in here. Just clarification, did the communication, and if he could, Mr. Chairman, if he could verify that the communication from the county regarding the access to the full scoping document, did Mr. Sagan, as just a representative of one of the municipalities, we know how to get that, or was it possible he doesn't know? Could we ask him that? Could we ask?
I did get access to the scoping document and we did submitted comments, but I did not get the 92-page report by Mary Beth analyzing it all.
And Kelly, you said this you can make available to everybody, right?
I can, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Be aye.
Are there any opposition? Not hearing any. The motion is moved. And if there's no other questions or comments, I'd like to take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion Michael Amo and seconded by legislator Tortel. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for getting together. I know everybody has a busy day today, so off and running again. Okay, thank you all.
Hey, thank you, Peter.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Peter.
Mary Beth.
Peter, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Take care,
bye.
everybody.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to text